Welcome back, Red Spotters. Another show here on the Red Spotlight Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host today, Alexis Soto. I am joined by Mr. David Francisco in his first show of 2020. You must have heard me say this by now, David. I know it's been a few weeks since we last sat down and did a podcast together. It's literally like maybe 4 episodes, I guess, maybe 3 later. But 2020 is already the longest year of my life. And I don't mean that in terms of podcasting. I mean, we haven't done as many, I think, as we did in the last 2 months. But they've been coming at our usual weekly schedule. But as I'm sure listeners can kind of pick up on the last few weeks, real world events have kind of been messing with my perception of time. And let's just say January at this point feels like it's been 3 months, considering, at least for me anyway. It's been a long fucking month. How are you?
I'm good. Just got out of class.
Okay. Yeah, I got out of class too. Teaching one anyway. So, yeah, I do that now. Yay. So, you're going to catch us on this recording maybe feeling a bit tired. Maybe not being as, composed as we usually are. But it doesn't fucking matter because you know what? It's like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. It's a weekday. And fuck it. We're just going to go for it. So today on episode 211, we have several discussions. We have a lot of nerdy, geeky discussions with Doctor Who and Star Wars, the Clone Wars, first and foremost. And then we're going to get into some discussions about some films that we haven't talked about yet. Some that David just saw, like The Two Popes. Also The Farewell, 1917, and Little Women. And whatever the hell else we feel like talking about. Just quickly, I want to update people. I know the last podcast that dropped focused a lot on the awards season, and I had said that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was like the front runner. It still very much is in play, but it's looking right now, just to keep people posted, that 1917 and Parasite are actually going to go toe-to-toe with each other. And it appears to be this year's final 2. As if it were a damn reality contest. But it pretty much is, how they are and everything. Because 1917, oh Jesus, I think it won the Producers Guild. And then Parasite surprisingly won the Screen Actors Guild version of Best Picture. So, and happy for that movie, obviously. So that's a little quick of an update if you care. Award season is going to be wrapping up, I think, I don't know, by this time next week. By the time February comes along, it'll be said and over with. And with that, as previously promised, our top 10 lists. I've just gotten earth-shattering news. Today, I think around 7 o'clock, 7:30, I don't know. Peter Martinez officially turned in his top 10 list of 2019. And I have to say, that's a damn miracle. I didn't expect it until at least April. So that's something. And apparently he hit a new record of how many films that he's seen and liked, which evidently enough, puts David and I to shame in terms of the number of movies that we've... And I thought I saw a lot of movies. But okay. Fuck it. All right. So... By I want to say at the latest, by the middle of February, we should be rolling out our top 10 lists of 2019 and our top 10 lists of the 2000s, the decade of the 2000s. David, have you made any progress on your top 10?
Yeah. I mean, I don't try to watch all the movies like Peter does. It's just whatever comes up from that year, I'll watch it. If it goes into my top 10, it goes into my top 10, which is, it's happening a lot lately. So,
not that, the early part of 2019 was awful. I thought there was some good films that came out in the early part of 2019. But the really exceptional films I think in large bulk came out in like the last fucking month of the year. It seems so. I've made no secret that my top 10 has been shattered entirely. Not just by one movie, but several movies.
Same.
I'm like trying to squeeze 11 movies now into my top 10, and I'm having the damnedest time picking which one gets left out. And then I feel bad. And they're just like, no, I want them all in there. No, it's yeah. So it's a process. Yeah. So that's the update on that. And of course, when the Oscars air, we'll probably have a post show and we'll talk about the bullshit that happens there, obviously. So that's your update for where we are on that. Now today, David and I haven't actually had the chance to talk much about a whole lot. So today, the recording today is being January the 22nd. This probably will, drop by the, I want to say 26th, 25th, whatever it is. The Disney Plus dropped a trailer for the upcoming final season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which is going to, I think, February 20-ish. So interesting. This is it suddenly all just became so real. And I don't know if this sounds, I don't know, bad to say this, but it almost feels like, okay, I'm kind of ready for Star Wars to not go away, but just kind of hit the pause button on it.
Yeah.
Especially after episode 9. And it almost, like, this trailer was like, yeah, no, this is the real closure for you, for Star Wars. Look, Star Wars: The Clone Wars is among my favorite series ever, and it's. I just don't want people to forget that it's kind of a miracle, especially if you're a big fan of this show. How unceremoniously it was just ripped out of our hands. And literally 7 years later, here comes the finale, the closure that we never thought we would see. And to just sit there and see a trailer for new episodes of the Clone Wars, the final episodes of the Clone Wars, regardless of whether or not we have a general idea of how that's going to go down, just seeing that animation again and seeing those characters again, it just made me so happy. It made me so happy. And talk about a wait. Talk about a long fucking wait to have. The show has been off the air for 7 years. That's fucking crazy. Oh God. I mean, what did you make of the trailer? And also talk about like your history with Clone Wars and everything. I'm sure you're a big fan of it as I am. I
am a fan of it. I didn't watch it much when it was on television. Yeah, I just kept missing episodes, but I would catch the reruns and it'd always be fun. And then I tried binge watching it when it was on Netflix, but I still haven't gone to the end. So I gotta yeah, I still gotta get to that. But yeah, no, I enjoyed the show, and from the bits and pieces that I've always seen, it always got me excited. And from the trailer, I mean, it's Ahsoka. You want to see that ending, and
yeah,
I definitely like the look of it. The animation. My first thought of the trailer was that the animation looked like a combination of Rebels and Clone Wars. Like they somehow combined the two, and that gets me excited because I actually like the fighting better in Rebels than in Clone Wars. So I think we're gonna see a lot of cool stuff in it.
Yeah, I don't know how much money they asked for these last few episodes, but you can tell when they crank out the Jedi robes and everything on animation, you know they're spending a pretty penny to put this thing on. This animation is stunning, just stunning. The only thing I will say though is I am not looking forward to it in a way, because they're going to do the same thing they did with Mandalorian and release every episode weekly throughout a 12-week period, which is because like the way the Clone Wars format worked is every 4 episodes is like one big story. So yeah, but it's going to be fun just having it back, you know? It's really just a celebration of this show, and I'm happy that it's been given its due. Because really, when Lucasfilm was purchased by Disney, this was the first thing on the chopping block. It got, like, it didn't even take a couple of, like, thoughts for Bob Iger to, like, yeah, this isn't really something we want to do. And they got rid of it, in large part, I assume, because I think Warner Brothers, Cartoon Network, had, I think, the rights to it or whatever at the time, and they didn't want to keep making more, so they just... That's what the rumors say, although, of course, since they have it, I don't know. Who cares? It's back, it's going to be ending. There it is. So, Doctor Who. The new series is airing right now. I have caught up on all of the new ones. I think David has the most recent one that he hasn't seen. He and I actually haven't had the opportunity to talk about Doctor Who in quite some time. Doctor Who's actually back on the air for the first time since 2018. I mean, regular season. And yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I'm kind of in the middle of this like a Doctor Who revival. Me personally, just getting every now and then I go back to Doctor Who and I like want to like think about it a lot. And okay, so did you and I ever have a back and forth about our thoughts on series 11?
I don't think so. I know I did like an episode of Who Knows with Kyle.
Okay.
But I don't think you and I ever really talked about it.
Maybe not so much.
Actually, yeah, I think we did, but it was like in the beginning of the season, not like not the overall season.
Right. So see, series 11, for those who are not aware of Doctor Who, is a very polarizing season, and has also been unfairly criticized from certain segments of the fan base who, quite frankly, it's the same thing with Captain Marvel and with Star Wars. There's not all of it, but there's a section of people who kind of just hate it because there's a woman now that's the Doctor, and I think it's unfortunate that there are some things that I have issue with in a series that involves a brand new frontier for Doctor Who. So, my feelings on series 11 were very mixed. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it was pretty mixed too. I mean, I still love Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. And I still love all the rest of the cast. They're funny, they're great working together and all that. It's just since I guess you don't remember, I mentioned when we talked about it that the season 11 wasn't really going to have like a narrative story throughout the entire season.
Right.
It was just one adventure to the next and to the next, and that's one thing that worried me. And yeah, that was kind of the weakest part of the season, is that it didn't have a narrative story. I liked the adventures they went on, but it was just that.
I think as far as that is concerned, I enjoy those, although they've some have, worked out better than others, obviously. But I think in general with this show is they've done a pretty good job of incorporating whatever mystery box element, whatever overarching narrative there is for a season. It ultimately, to me, was never so much the surprise element, whereas what they did with the characters, what it meant to the Doctor and the companion and the dynamic, and how their relationship was going to go forward or not, that ultimately is what was at consequence for the show, not so much what the big reveal is, although that can be very fun as well. So I think in the sense, it's strange, because I feel that maybe we could have had more. My overall issue with Series 11 was it felt aimless. It felt directionless. I didn't get a sense of where we were going. We weren't building to anything. We just kind of were. And it kind of became, ultimately, in my view, disappointing that this is the best they could come up with honestly what could have been the most single important series of Doctor Who, maybe ever, with Jodie Whittaker coming in as the first female Doctor. I like Jodie Whittaker's performance, but I'm still not ready to say that I enjoy her Doctor. Only because I don't feel like I know her all that much. And that's my biggest issue, is that no matter what other things are on the side, even with too many companions or whatever, or not development there hasn't been, I feel, the necessary development or attention to this Doctor to where I can connect with her as the Doctor. I'm still looking at it and feeling like it's a performance by Jodie Whittaker versus I'm looking at the Doctor herself. I can't connect with her.
And that's actually like one of my biggest problems in this season. It really has to do with the writing,
Yeah.
And like one thing that I noticed, and I noticed this when I saw that New Year's special about resolution, yeah, and that every season it's the same pattern. Like when he has a new companion, they get a new one, they think they're going to this great adventure, then something happens that they realize, who the heck are we with? And that's how you connect with the Doctor, at least to the new Doctor. It's through the companions. And they haven't taken the time to really connect the companions with the Doctor at all. I mean, it seems like they're going to do that now this season, so hopefully it can lead up to something.
I mean, we're here's the thing. Okay, there's just so much already that we could say.
I know.
my big issues is that, yes, it was kind of a squander of a series, because Series 11, because you had the vast frontier of a new direction, and you didn't do a new direction. And it became not even just run-of-the-mill Doctor Who, kind of like basic Doctor Who. The writing is the biggest, I think, problem with this. And that is, while there have been, a couple of, lines changed here and there, you would think a character as big as the Doctor that has regenerated 13 times, you'd think there'd be more of an emphasis on the fact that she's a woman. And just think of the opportunities that creates for this series to tell some of these stories from a completely different perspective. And yet, I feel that's just kind of been neglected or barely mentioned, right? And her gender playing a big role in this iteration of the series, I think could have been something very defining for this Doctor, and yet they haven't really addressed it all that much, which I find disappointing, because I think that's kind of the bridge to new stories, to different perspectives. I know in that witch episode there was a line here and there, but the Doctor sometimes doesn't even realize she's a woman now. And I think that's also part of the problem, is that it didn't really change anything. And then you bring up the companions, which is a different issue. So I mentioned in the last Who Knows, when we were talking about Spyfall, Kyle and I. And I said that, man, it really is eye-opening that at the second part of the two-part season 12 opener, it all of a sudden dawns on these people. Wait a minute. We don't really know this bitch we're traveling with in the box, do we? Like, at all.
Yeah.
And the Doctor is secretive, but in all of the previous iterations, by this time in Capaldi, Smith, Tennant, hell, even like in the one season with Eccleston, the stories forced a lot of revelations between the Doctor and the companion. You know, the stories revealed the Doctor to the companions. And if you noticed in all of those different series, here's something that I think is key. In Series 11 and Series 12, the companions and the Doctor are more or less on the same page 100% of the time. There's no disagreements, there's no fighting, there's no bickering, there's no conflict. And that's boring. And then you realize to yourself that in all of the other versions, there have been several instances where the companion stands up to the Doctor and takes him to task. For whatever reason, you know, wrong or right, there have been clashes. And when you have those kind of clashes, I mean, sparks fly. And that's, you know, that spins the wheels for storytelling to actually mean something and, you know, to put a stamp on what it is that the show is. I think of Thin Ice, the third episode of Series 10, where Bill, you know, confronts Capaldi's Doctor by just letting that boy be sucked down by that sea beast and him just saving his sonic screwdriver and her like, how many people have you killed? And he doesn't answer that. I think of Clara with Capaldi, or with the second episode with Matt Smith and Amy Pond. He blew up at her because she kept something from him. And then the same thing with Martha and Donna and Rose. And I just feel like people are saying that there are too many companions, and to a degree that's true, because you have 3 times as many characters to keep an eye out, and all 3 of them have been underdeveloped. I think maybe Ryan this season is getting more of a look. But still, it's an interesting choice that at no point it seems that we're going to develop any kind of a dynamic with the companions and the Doctor, right? Like, even at this, and when I pointed to what you just said, right, that they're just realizing now who is this woman that we don't know. I think we can check the tape that by this point, Rose, Donna, Martha, Amy, Rory, Clara, Bill, especially Bill, she had 1 season. A lot of them had only 1 season. If you think about it. At this point, for the companions to not know about Gallifrey, the Time Lords, regeneration, anything, like Series 11, and I don't want to sound this way, because I understand where Chris Chibnall, the showrunner, wanted to like not be so attached to the previous seasons, but like it felt so disconnected from the overall story of Doctor Who and where they are now. That's why, which would have been fine if you've carved out some new story to go forward. But there wasn't any. And that's part of the reason why I felt aimless. But it also felt disconnected because the Doctor just kept so much of who she's been to herself. And the companions didn't really know the Doctor like we know the Doctor. So I'm almost just at arm's length with it because, like, okay, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me as a viewer, I'll say. Because I don't know. It just, like, and I know that in series 12, like, think about this, right? So from that episode you mentioned, from Resolution to Spyfall, and I fear that it may have been like a reactionary thing, but in the span of 2 episodes, they bring back the Daleks and the Master.
That was one thing I wouldn't say didn't like about those episodes, but it's the one thing that I noticed immediately about the writer. That
right.
He's really not good at building up stuff. And I really think he did not portray the Doctor right when he introduced them. Because both of the Daleks and the Master. Because like every time, like the first time you see the Dalek, which is in which Doctor was it?
Which New Who or Old
New
Who?
Who.
The New Who. It was episode called Dalek in season 1.
Yeah, when you first see it on that, you know that you get like the happy Doctor, and he's like all calm and everything, and then as soon as you see the Dalek, it's a complete 180, and like he's either afraid or angry, but with Jodie, you know, they have this bad situation, and she literally says, "Oh no, 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 no," and then when she finds out the Dalek, it's just, "Oh no, 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 no," and then when she finds out it's the Master, "Oh no, 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 no," it's like, I mean, come on, you gotta.
Oh my god, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
it's the exact same reaction.
Yeah, and like I'm not kidding. Like she says, "Oh no, no."
Oh no, no, no.
Yeah, like he's not utilizing like full Jodie's acting ability in this, I feel like, and it was really a disappointment. And also, what I mean, like he's not really good at building up stuff. You know, in past seasons. Well, bringing up with the Master, when you first see him in Tennant's run, throughout the entire season, you see little things that build up to the reveal of the Master. Now, I don't mind revealing the Master in the beginning of this season, 12th season, but in the next episode where they're in that spa thing, and like you find out that the spa place is it's Earth. Spoilers, sorry, but it's Earth, and you think. You know, I think it would have been better if, like, the Doctor kept that to herself, and it's like, oh, shoot, what is this? And, like, you know, we forget about it. Like, all the other scenes, they throw something in, but we forget about it later on until it comes back up. But he uses that as a reason to talk about global warming to protect the Earth, and it's fine, but you missed an opportunity there, man.
There was a lot of missed opportunities, especially with how it was weirdly edited at the end. That episode you're talking about. But we're talking about, I hadn't realized it, but you were so correct when you said that she reacted in the exact same way to Daleks and the Master. And it was like, oh my God, that's bad.
Yeah.
Because while that in and of itself is just not good, because you can't, the Daleks and the Master are different entities, and she should have different reactions to both. And why I know that, because we've seen that.
Yeah.
I think about this in your mind. The not just Eccleston, but Tennant and Smith and Capaldi, the first time they all came across the Daleks, the anger that compelled all of them, the fear in Doomsday with Tennant, or with in the Winston Churchill episode with Smith, and how angry he was at the Daleks.
Smith, he literally like takes like some crowbar and starts beating the Dalek.
Yes,
and so,
yes,
like,
as he should, because they're evil. And yeah,
and usually when like, you have something like that, whether it's a Dalek or the Master or just something like big villainy, that's how they used it to sort of make the companions go, oh, who the heck are we with, you know? And again, it wasn't really utilized well.
Like, for me, my favorite version of the Master in this series has been Missy. And I love the reveal of Missy. And I especially loved Capaldi's reaction to the reveal of Missy.
Oh my God, it's the best.
But I don't want to spend too much time like repeating what I said, but can you tell me your thoughts on how? Okay, so one of my issues, and again, I recognize that that it's just a me thing. But what did you make of what I said about how all of the basically everything with the Master and with the Doctor in Spyfall was handled in response to where we left Missy? Remember what I said about that?
Where we left Missy?
So what I said was this. So if we are, and I do believe that this new Master is the direct successor to Missy, which, I mean, it's not a surprise because the Master would always come back, even if they say that they died or whatever. But there were several things about that just, as a longtime viewer, did not work. And it didn't work because they just act as if Series 10 didn't happen.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, I was confused.
An entire season, like, the Doctor kept the Master in a vault, rehabilitating her, and he succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
She stood with him in the end.
Yeah.
And yet, here we are, like, a season later, and it was weird to me how the show acted like that never happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird. And, I mean, we're going to have to wait till the end of the season, sadly, to know, like, what it was that, like, just made that turn for him. But...
okay, I can understand what Kyle said, that, okay, maybe the Master came back to Gallifrey and then he became mad again. That makes sense. But why the Doctor would just forget that all the time that she spent with the Master?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get that the last time that she saw the Master, two versions of the Master were leaving her in the dust.
Yeah.
But deep down, when I go back and look at that amazing scene with Capaldi and Michelle Gomez and John Sim, when he's basically begging with them, and you see the tears in Missy's eyes because she wants to so badly stand with him. I get the feeling deep down Capaldi knew he made some kind of headway with her.
Yeah.
That he didn't fail entirely.
Yeah, it should have been brought up with Jodie's Doctor. Like, she should have mentioned, hey, like, was there something that I did to make you change? Like, why are you doing this and all that?
And think about the potential for what that could create here. And maybe the failure of the Doctor. So many things come to mind that could have been done with that. And I understand that for new viewers, that's not necessarily important. But for us, longtime viewers, it was strange. And it was...
Again, it's really just my biggest complaint. He's not utilizing Jodie's acting ability. I feel like she can do so much more, but he's just giving her the whole, she's the happy doctor, and there's no,
it just makes me nervous for, like, okay, so the whole premise is like, okay, everything you thought you knew was a lie. Okay, won't kill me. Fucking kill me. That could be great, don't get me wrong. But like, you're okay. What? So Gallifrey is destroyed, the Master did it, and because of a lie, and you just think to yourself, well, yes, the show has retconned a lot of things in the past, and not to say that they're not, capable of doing it any longer, but I just feel that in a era of Doctor Who that already feels so disconnected from the previous, 10 years, you're really going to go out of your way to basically undo that? you're crossing some dangerous territory here. And I really hope to God that you can pull it off and do something good with it. But I feel like, okay, so we start off the season with this big revelation. Master is back. And we're not going to get the resolution to that until the last 2 episodes. And I feel like, can't we just like 1 year just break from the mold? Like, maybe can we just have the Master just more involved? Have that story just be more than just the premiere and the finale?
Yeah.
Like, have the characters live with the revelation and move on from it. Because Orphan 55, the last episode, by the way, I enjoyed Spyfall. I enjoyed the episodes.
Same.
And I really enjoyed the new Master. So, just to be clear, we're not just bitching to bitch. Like, I genuinely enjoyed these episodes.
Yeah. No, I was confused when like they introduced him as the Master, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, he's the Master, I guess. But the way he kind of like just did this whole, like the way he acted all crazy and evil. I don't know how to explain it, but
I immediately bought him as the Master. So I had no issues there, right? So there's some good stuff here. But so with Orphan 55, also, was standard Doctor Who, and I enjoyed it, but I think what it hurts is we're 12 seasons in, and it's like, okay, but this could have been so much better. And one of the reasons it could have been so much better is like, okay, and I've noticed that people are really upset about this, but okay, so that speech at the end, putting the substance of it to the side for a bit, it was so weirdly placed in the episode. Like, it was so weird. So she gives this like foreboding monologue to her companions. We get no reaction from her companions. And then it cuts to the monster, and then it cuts to black, and that's the episode. And it's like, that was pretty abrupt.
Yeah.
Just to put it nicely on that.
It's almost as if the writer is kind of like, he wants to do like how it's usually done this season, creating the narrative story, but he also wants to add in his own, that whole like his speeches stuff that he did last season, like, oh, this person went out to do this and all that, and it's like, and then this person went out to do that, like they did the last season. It's like he's trying to mix both of them in, but it was badly placed in the last episode, or not the last episode, but
this is the problem also, is with all of the big moments with Whittaker's Doctor. At this point, I should know her. At this point, I should understand who she is. And I feel if I were to clip together all of her big speeches, just remembering what I can because they weren't memorable, I'm just going to assume there are a lot of inconsistencies there. She's just not consistent with what she says, because she says she's a pacifist, but then she says there's no consistency, I feel, to that. Whereas every single fucking time Capaldi gave a speech, it was entirely into his character. Entirely. Nothing. And not even just the war speech from the Zygon inversion, the Dr. Falls speech, when he's, pouring his heart out to the Masters, or his final monologue before he regenerates. Like, and it all felt unique to him and his Doctor, whereas the speeches that she gives does not feel unique to her. So I think you and I are in general agreement that there's been, the writing is the big issue, but the writing is kind of failing on all cylinders, I feel, in terms of the Doctor, the companions, and the storylines are just overall. And again, I enjoyed these episodes, but I'm worried for the potential revelation. I'm more worried than I am excited, and that's not a good thing,
No, I agree.
Anything else to add on that?
No. I mean,
Yeah, that's kind of been festering.
same.
Yeah, but you're right. I'm just thinking back to Resolution, which, again, an episode I liked, an episode that I thought used the Daleks in an interesting way out of the shell and everything, and the Daleks sinisterly. Again, that's handled well.
But just not the Doctor.
But the fact that the Doctor... Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, let's deal with it. And the Doctor doesn't even really say to the companions what the... She doesn't say what the Daleks are. She just says they're an old enemy of mine. Really? Really?
Yeah.
Gosh. And it makes me feel terrible. Because I want to love Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. I want to love these companions.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like the problem isn't them. It's just Chris Chibnall. And I just think to myself, fuck. Couldn't we just have had Stephen Moffat just stay? I get that Stephen Moffat like wasn't like... I understand to a lot of fans, Stephen Moffat was very hit or miss. But when he hit, holy fuck did it hit. Right?
No, yeah.
So I almost just wonder what it would have looked like if he had stayed and with this Doctor and everything. I almost wished that would have been the case because I'm just visualizing. Imagine if Pearl Mackey's Bill Potts has stayed over and then a new dynamic with that companion with Jodie Whittaker. That's a potential. I mean, gosh, I'm sorry. All of which is to say is I'm not over the fact that Peter Capaldi left, Stephen Moffat left, even Murray Gold, who did the amazing scores for all those years of Doctor Who.
Dang.
He's gone. Like, oh gosh. And it's not just that it was a transitional period, right? Like, I feel like we wouldn't be having these issues if it was really good right now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not bad, but there's growing concerns like Yaz kind of has no character.
Yeah.
She's just kind of there, and that's kind of her job every single episode.
Mm-hmm.
And in series 11, Graham and Ryan had more going on. But and when you'll see the Tesla episode, which is the next one, that you haven't seen yet, it almost feels as if they're all kind of the same person now.
Oof. And
there's like nothing going on, and I'm like, but Graham Graham especially is one that I thought worked. He was kind of my favorite one of last year, but there's no meat to the bones. That's kind of the issue.
Yeah.
So
no.
We're
both just worried what the heck is gonna happen, and
yeah. And again, to reiterate, that's coming from us who enjoyed these last batch of episodes, more or less, so yeah. Let's get into these goddamn movie reviews.
Yeah.
David, you have your phone out. You're going to read the synopses for these movies. And I'm going to let you pick which movie you want to start off talking about with.
Ooh, oh God. Which ones were we going to talk about? I mean, I know.
So we had 1917, Little Women, Two Popes, and The Farewell.
Let's go for Two Popes, because you guys already talked about it, right? I just gotta give my thoughts on it. Yeah. So, what? Okay. So the synopsis is: Two Popes, frustrated with the direction of the church, Cardinal Bergoglio requests permission to retire.
Hold on, let me just stop you there, because I know Peter botched the name. It's Bergoglio, but I think the easier way to pronounce it is Bergoglio.
Okay.
Jorge Bergoglio.
Okay. Bergoglio requests permission to retire in 2012 from Pope Benedict. Instead of facing scandal and self-doubt, the introspective Pope Benedict summons his harshest critic and future successor to Rome to reveal a secret that would shake the foundations of the Catholic Church. So, yeah. This movie was great. Oh my gosh. Who were the actors? Jonathan Pryce and Anthony Hopkins were really great together. I laughed in everything that they were doing, and they were both just both really interesting characters, and how much they clashed in their ideals, how they both just handled it super well, talking to each other. Yeah, I mean, you guys said it in your podcast. It was funny, great acting, great. What I kind of noticed it was more of the sounds around them, how it used everything around themselves to kind of create the tension and also the peacefulness.
No, there was a lot of amazing details about the movie, and I mean, some of the things that I picked up on. You're right, the atmosphere around them, especially when they're outside in the garden.
Atmosphere, yes,
it really adds to the clash that's going on there. Talking about examples of how clashing can make for great, riveting filmmaking, just like that. But I also one of the best touches is because I've been listening to the score, which is also great in and of itself, the score for the film. Although, if you listen back to the soundtrack, it's oh my god. But one of my favorite sequences is when Father Bergoglio, Pope Francis, when he's not Pope Francis, he's walking in for the first time in the movie in the Sistine Chapel, the huge recreation of the Sistine Chapel, and it's filmed beautifully because it looks like he's walking into a dark room, but he's not. It's just from our point of view. And then the dark reveals the big Sistine Chapel. And this beautiful jazzy saxophone-y music is kind of playing in the background while they're showing the images of the recreation of the Sistine Chapel. And kind of like symbolizing his spirituality, and his spiritual experience, seeing these images. Beautiful, wonderful touches. How do we not mention the fact that he's whistling
Dancing Queen?
What's the song? Dancing Queen. It's also weirdly funny, this movie.
Yes. Oh my god, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. But then they actually played the song, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is I would not have expected this.
No, it's one of those things where it's like, it is on paper. I can imagine maybe all of us thinking, damn, this looks like a boring movie, but it is so not. Not only are the, religious and political discussions riveting, but it is entertaining, like really entertaining. And it is beautifully made, even in the flashback scenes, the actor that plays young Bergoglio and all the crap that happens there. And I think for me, thinking back, I haven't seen it in a couple of weeks, but I still keep getting images of I know that in the scene where it's after dinner and Hopkins and Price are in there and they're playing piano, but before then, the Pope admits that, God doesn't talk to him, and he just looks so distraught. And you just saw, God, the acting by Anthony Hopkins. Or when, from the flashback that we see that Bergoglio got a call from God, literally, as he was about to propose, or, marry whatever, his then girlfriend. And then we cut back to old Bergoglio, and he's just about in tears. It is, honest to God, it's great. It's amazing. And I'm really happy you guys have enjoyed it. Like, you really liked it. You said it was great, and Kyle really loved it. And I'm just like, well, thankfully it wasn't just me that thought that for a change.
No, I honestly would have entirely skipped this movie because I'm just not big on religion. So
none of us are.
Yeah.
That's kind of the weird. That's interesting, right? Because like I also had that thought in my mind as none of us are. Some of us may subscribe to one, but none of us would ever be quoted or identified as being the religious type, or I guess the stigma that comes with being quote unquote religious, if you will. especially, well, I mean, to be fair, you subscribe to the Church of Disney, but 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 you know, you did grow up in a community that is very much Catholic, overwhelmingly Catholic, I would say. Not that your family is devout or any of that, but interestingly, what made you watch this, and what did you make of all of the religious components? Since that's not necessarily who you are.
Well, I mean, I was kind of a little bit interested just because of Anthony Hopkins and
Jonathan Pryce.
Yeah, him. Just because I know they're really good actors, so it's got to be a bit interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But then you guys on the group chat said this movie's amazing. You guys gotta watch it. So I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And then just the way, and then you guys described it. You know, it's really funny and it's actually engaging in the topics that they're talking about, which I did too. Found it super engaging. From like me not being that religious at all, it didn't really seem to bother me because they're really just talking about morality basically, and which is it's something that we should all listen to every once in a while or know about.
Yeah, that is interesting that you pointed that out there. You know, morality. Many people would point to religion as being, you know, where morality came from, but not entirely having to be connected to it. But I think there is something to be said that people who don't identify as religious can also enjoy this movie. And that's great. And I think that just speaks to how great the movie is, if that's the case. Because, I mean, it is... It does get into the faith. I mean, it is a philosophical debate, basically, what we're happening here. What the movie is. So, I'm just over the moon that you guys liked it so much, because it really touched me. I even saw it in Spanish with my dad. So it was just like, yeah, great film. Okay. So, with that being said, also go Netflix.
Yes, Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to say real quick, and you don't have to pull this up, but I really, really enjoyed Klaus. I saw that over the Christmas break. I told this to Moreno when she was over here, and I said this to her, that the movie, weirdly enough, the best way to describe it is like if you were to smush together The Emperor's New Groove with The Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah. Because you have basically the story of The Emperor's New Groove, but you have kind of the visual direction of Burton's, Nightmare Before Christmas and the whole Christmas element here. No, but it's really good. Like I'd actually think, well, for me, it's hard because, I am a Disney bitch, and a Pixar bitch. It's hard for me because generally I genuinely do love Toy Story 4 and Frozen 2 in their own ways. And I may like those movies more than Klaus, but at the same time, if I had the opportunity to award a film for Best Animated Feature, I do think Klaus deserves it the most. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I agree.
I thought it was... Oh, God. It's also a great Christmas movie. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, it hits all the right spots of Christmas about family and the Christmas spirit, about all the whole... Oh my God, I had the words like days ago, like how I would describe this movie. It's always when I do the podcast.
Well, it happens a lot. Well, think of it in a minute, but it's like, it's a low-key origin story for Santa Claus in a way. And I didn't catch on to that until like maybe a quarter into the movie. But damn. That's a hell of an origin story. Yeah. And we've seen plenty of them, haven't we? But it's an origin story that doesn't excessively try too hard to be an origin story in a way. And I felt that maybe calling the movie that is kind of undercutting it because it's not really that. It's there, but what makes it work is obviously the writing. I think the voice actors are great. And like any great Christmas movie, it has the right amount of heart. Just a big heart. I really like Jesper and Klaus. Seeing Jesper, I mean, Jesper's arc is basically Cusco. I mean, let's just be real about that. It's very much the same thing, but it's still, because of the Christmas element, it's its own thing. Also, I don't know why I don't realize this much, but it may be, oh God, and it's hard because Frozen 2 and Toy Story 4 were beautifully animated movies, among the best animated movies, best looking animated movies. But damn, I thought it was a brilliant, honestly kind of inspired choice to go with 2D animation here.
No, you can't go wrong with 2D. It really always
especially
has to
since
do
we
with
don't have
the
it.
way.
We don't have it that much anymore. And the fact that it is 2D in 2019, well, when it was in 2019, that makes it, I think, more special. It also makes it more, I don't know, timeless in a way. Because, you know, it's 2D animation. I mean, it's classic animated movies.
Yeah,
man. Anything else to add on Klaus?
no, I couldn't remember my words, but oh well.
Oh, well. That happens, I'm sure. So what was the next movie you want to talk about?
Let's talk about Little Women. Did you actually talk about that in the podcast? I don't remember.
We haven't yet.
Oh, okay. I know I did. I just gave my brief review of it, but the synopsis: Little Women, own your story. 4 sisters come of age in America in the aftermath of a civil war. That's all it says.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really. I thought I had like more. I thought I would have said more, but yeah, that's all it says. Well, like I said, I love this movie. The best thing about it was really the cast, ensemble cast. All of them so entertaining. Even what is it, Timothy Chalamet? And even though he's like not like a big, I mean, I wouldn't say big character in the story. It's really just the women that were the best thing in this. And like it says, it's a bit of a coming of age story.
It is. Mm-hmm. It is. It's a beautiful ensemble. It's also, we were just talking about Klaus. It's also, even though it's not overtly, it's still a great Christmas movie.
Yeah, it is.
You know, this movie is, you know, it is this way. What I've noticed about Greta Gerwig's movies. When I went to go see Lady Bird with Nettie and Eric, they asked me what I thought of it when I walked out. And I was like, I think the best way to describe Lady Bird it's delightful. Mm-hmm. And Nettie was just like, yeah, that's kind of the perfect word for it. It's delightful. And I think Greta Gerwig knows how to make a fucking movie. A good, heartwarming, but not lazy or generic, you know?
Yeah.
It's her movies. And really with this one in a weird way, because it is an adaptation. It's not an original, but why does it feel like it's an original movie?
I didn't know.
I know. Well, it's like Little Women is this established thing. There have been actually like 3 other versions of this movie made in the past, really. So it's just like it's like A Star Is Born, right? Because that movie was remade several times as well.
Yeah.
But I think there is something great to be said for the fact that even though I knew that this was an established franchise, or series, I didn't know too much of what it was. Mm-hmm. So that could have colored what I'm about to say. But I really do think that this is like It's impressive that this is another version of this story being told, but it just feels entirely original. This is also, I think, maybe a better word for delightful. A better word than delightful for this movie is cathartic. This movie, I felt like I had like all of my emotions put in a washing machine or something while watching this movie, you know? The ensemble was great. You love all of them. You know, you get invested into them. The acting, phenomenal. Now, Saoirse is amazing in everything. I loved her in Lady Bird. I loved her in Brooklyn. And she's great here too. Timothy fucking Chalamet is one of the best actors I've ever seen. He's so young, and yet it is unsettling how easy he makes it look when he's acting. But you know who else is also great in this? And I agreed with you when you said this. She was also in Midsommar. Florence Pugh. Holy shit. Is great in this movie.
Yeah.
And she also got so Florence Pugh and Saoirse Ronan were nominated for actress and supporting actress for Little Women, and well deserved, of course. It were the two best performances in the movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Okay. Oh, gosh, it is, and I said it was cathartic because like it kind of puts you through the ringer because you get so invested in this family. It helps that they're so likable. They're growing up in the Civil War era, post-Civil War era, 1860s, 1870s, if I'm not mistaken. And I just, you know, one of the things I mean, of course, it deals with endearments of the heart and romance and all that stuff. And it handles it in such an elegant way. You just can't help but being swept up in it as they are in the movie. But I just thought to myself, you know, as I was walking out and getting a little bit emotional, even though I shouldn't be because I'm not a parent. God help me if I am. But I almost kind of like started crying thinking about what a perfect movie this would be if I ever had a little girl. Oh my God. Greta Gerwig puts her stamp on this. And it's just kind of like, you know, little girls can be whatever they want to be.
Yeah.
And I love how in a movie that is set in this era, I'm so appreciative of how Saoirse, her character, is handled in this movie, and just that her personal. While yes, she does get a man at the end. I love how this movie went out of its way to make sure that was something extra, but that's not really what her goal in the movie was. Yeah. Her goal was to defy conventional wisdom, to, I guess the cliche, break the glass ceiling. But her main thing was going through the artist's hellhole, if you will. Yeah. And as a woman, getting a successful book, which is called Little Women, as it were, out there. And they all have their own journeys. I mean, Emma Watson marries not for money, but for true love. There's even a twist and turn with Timothée Chalamet and Florence Pugh. Yeah. And that may cut people the wrong way how it ends.
That was kind of
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think that's the best word to use because it's not something I expected. It's also not something that I'm sure I'm entirely on board with.
Same.
But the movie was so good, I kind of don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that big of an issue, but it's interesting. I'll put it that way, considering all the things that happen, right?
Yeah.
But we won't get into spoilers yet for that one. But for me, it was such a beautiful movie. A beautiful movie to sit through. And I hate the fact that it was ruined. Because the minute I walked out of that fucking movie, it was when the whole Iran crap was happening. And I was like, oh, fuck me.
Oh, man.
I know, right?
Yeah. What I enjoyed the most of the story, it's really four sisters growing apart almost, but finding some way to get back together with each other and accept each other's paths, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really wonderful story.
Also, some of the most emotional moments I've seen in a movie on here. Like, it got me. And, like, if you get invested in this family, considering the things that happen, not just the good and the bad, but, oh, my God. Also, I almost wish, even though she doesn't really do much here, but Laura Dern is great in this movie, too.
Yeah. Everyone is. It's when we say ensemble cast and like everyone does great. Everyone, even like this one character kind of comes up like towards the quarter end of the movie. But even he's great.
It just gets me so excited for what Greta Gerwig is doing next. So far, I'm really loving her as a filmmaker. With this and Lady Bird, so I can't wait for what happens next. Okay, so I suppose 1917?
Yeah, sure.
That's the next one we'll talk about.
So
1917. Directed by Sam Mendes.
Time is the enemy. At the height of the First World War, two young British soldiers, Schofield and Blake, are given a seemingly impossible mission. In a race against time, they must cross enemy territory and deliver a message that will stop a deadly attack on hundreds of soldiers, Blake's own brother among them. This was great. I mean,
hold on a minute. I just realized something, and I have to stop this podcast to recognize something. David is wearing an Appa, an Aang T-shirt from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it's amazing. I love it. I'm sorry. I just realized.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah. Box lunch.
That's great.
They got some great stuff. I love it. Okay.
It's great. I'm sorry. I told you we'd get a little loopy. It's late. Go ahead.
I don't mind. It's a cool shirt. I love it. So, 1917. Great movie. I love the actors. They worked very well together. And yes, the movie is one shot, but that's to me at least, that's like the least important thing of the movie, really. You got great tension, you got intense moments, and some really great music scores going on. And when you see it like as a one shot, the director did a great job in like, getting you like as soon as things start to slow down, it gets you going, and then he knows when to slow down again and to kind of like make you be in the moment of what's happening to these characters. But yeah, it's a great movie.
I agree with every word of that, and that's exactly why I didn't really care for it. It's so strange. I'm sorry, but that's true. I gotta be real. It is a great film, technically speaking. Yeah. The actors are great. The action is great. The one-shotness of it is great. The suspense, the stakes. I was interested throughout the entire film. So on every level, from a crafts and technical perspective, it is a phenomenal film. No one will doubt that. But when I said it's because of all those reasons why I don't care, and again, this is kind of where, anyone's own internal biases can kick in, right? while all of those things are true, me, speaking for me, and I'm sure Peter feels this way as well, this movie left me with the exact same feeling that Dunkirk left me with. And that is, well, that's not fair. Because Dunkirk was disorienting in not a great way, at least for me. This wasn't. This was very easy to follow, and it was a good film, great film. But the similarities with this and Dunkirk, aside from it just being a war movie, is while employing great actors for these roles, I don't get a lick of a sense of maybe more so with 1917 than Dunkirk attempted to, but I still clearly the weak spot of this movie is character development, because that's not really a concern with the movie. Now, you do get a sense from the two actors that we follow here who they are, what their deal is. That's not what's in dispute. What's in dispute is whether or not I give a shit about them, you know? And that's kind of the ultimate test for me. I find it hard to care about a movie if I don't care about the characters. Now, that's not to say that the characters have to be inherently good-natured or bad-natured. If I don't care about your character, if I can't in any way connect with your character, who I'm going to be spending most of the screen time with, it doesn't matter that they get into some amazing fireworks display of a set piece. I ultimately won't care because I don't care about that person. That person could be shot and I literally would like burp or something and like, oh, that happened. And to be fair to Sam Mendes and to the film, that's not really what their main priority was. Again, from a directing standpoint, I understand why it is getting recognized the way that it is. Although I will say, while technically great, I don't really think it really builds new ground here. I mean, there have been some great war films. I know Hacksaw Ridge, the Mel Gibson film, was amazingly directed from a few years ago. I know Dunkirk, even though I don't like the movie, is amazingly directed. And I think with Hacksaw Ridge, I care more about that movie because I actually care about Andrew Garfield and his story. And whereas here, I can't come close to caring. And I'm sorry, but that's just kind of where I come at it. And it's not a movie that I'll ever care to watch again. Not because it's not good. It's great. But like I told Peter, if I'm going to compare this to other movies, any kind of movie, just on character alone, this movie came in underneath Captain Marvel for me because at least Captain Marvel had Talos. And I loved Talos. 1917 had nothing from a character perspective.
Yeah, no, I get it. I noticed that too when I first watching it, that there wasn't much character development.
Mm-hmm.
But I did care about the journey they were going through. I was never afraid for their life. I knew he was going to somehow make it towards the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, fuck, that's a spoiler, isn't it? Oh my god.
Is it?
I guess.
I mean, is it? I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean that's really like the only tiny spoiler. There's some other stuff going on, but kind of. But I mean, again, I cared about the journey that they were going through and the way that the director built the environment, basically, of like like what's happening in this land, and just kind of seeing the actors' reaction to everything, like what they want to, like how they're gonna get through this, and how they're reacting just the whole carnage basically around them.
Again, it's impressive. I think as a package, it is very impressive, especially since I think the one-shot feature works very well in the movie. It gives it a little bit of a interesting touch than it would be if it weren't made to appear as if it was on a, captured in one shot. And I think as film fans that we are, the experience of just watching the craft on display is alone, I think, really makes this a must watch. But again, just because of the inherent nature of this movie, it's a great film. But I also called Ad Astra a great film in a way. And yet I tried watching it a second time. I literally couldn't get through 5 seconds and I just shut it off. And I'm just like, no, you know what? I don't need to see this again. Why would I see it again? Because I don't care about it. So that's just kind of where I come from on that. So sorry. That's kind of where I am. Are those all the movies? No, we have one more. We have one more. The Farewell. Yeah. Okay. This one's better. This is better.
Yeah. Okay. So based on an actual lie, a headstrong Chinese American woman returns to China when her beloved grandmother is given a terminal diagnosis. Billy struggles with her family's decision to keep grandma in the dark about her own illness as they all stage an impromptu wedding to see grandma one last time. Yeah. Again, another movie I loved. The cast was great. The story was very, very interesting for me and how they're gonna deal with, like, how each character's gonna deal with it. Because you got one that's against it, you got everyone else who's for it, and it was a huge surprise for me. What's her name? Hold on. Awkwafina. How great of an actress. Well, how funny of an actress she is. I saw her in she was in Jumanji, The Next Level. I can't remember what's it called, but really? Yeah. And she was pretty cool in it, but this one I feel like it was so much better. And yeah.
Well, Awkwafina is known more for her comedy, I feel, but in this movie she got to do more than just being funny.
That's why I thought it was so much better.
What you were getting at, basically. And I also thought that could have been in consideration for Best Actress, considering the range that she has to go through in this. Yeah. No, this movie's great. Another, I think, A24 staple here. This, I think by the very nature of it is an emotionally charged movie. The situation is interesting because as Americans, it's a very foreign, downright alien concept. The premise of this, that is, across the world, it's very normal in the sense that, and Lulu Wang, the director of the film, based this off her own story and her own Nai, her own grandmother, in the concept that they do in China, where if the person has kind of like a life-ending disease, they don't tell them because it is their long-held belief that it's not, let's say in this case, the cancer that kills them, but it's the fear that kills them. And it's an interesting concept because I feel, and clearly, not in every case clearly, but I think it's an interesting concept because there is, I feel, some truth to that tale of the fear killing people more so than the disease.
I actually, it's not the same, but it's almost kind of relatable to me. My grandma, she had Alzheimer's, so she started seeing things and all that. And my mom told me that whenever she like starts hearing something or starts seeing something, her sister would go, "No, there's nothing there. Like, don't, like, you're just seeing stuff." But my mom, she would play along with it. like she'll say, "There's some construction workers working outside. I can't sleep." And she'll go, "Oh, okay, I'll call them. I'll tell them to stop and all that." Like she plays along with it.
Right.
So like I remember when she told me that, I was kind of like, "Oh wow, that's kind of interesting." And so I think that's how I kind of like understood both sides of both cultures wanting to do that.
Right.
It was interesting, really interesting for me.
Yeah, it may also because clearly you're not from China, you're not Chinese, but that concept can. It's not singularly Chinese, but for the terms of this movie, it's embedded. It seems like in Chinese culture, and the whole premise of this is that Awkwafina's grandmother Nai Nai is diagnosed with it, and the whole family makes this decision to not tell her. So they come up with this elaborate excuse for the whole family to reunite. They throw together one of their nephews into a marriage, quote unquote marriage, as the excuse to all come back to China to see her one last time, to see Nai Nai one last time. I'll say this: the ending is surprising. But we'll save that for the end. But gosh, it is. I'm sure. If you're someone who had a close relationship with your grandmother, maybe lost their grandmother, I feel like this would be a very emotional experience to see a movie like this. Because to me, the best part is the dynamic between Awkwafina and her Nai Nai, played by Zhao Zuzhen, Chinese actress, who I also felt should have been in consideration for Best Supporting Actress, because she's great in this. It's so, I don't know, the dynamic between them, I feel like at some point I forget that I'm watching a movie. And I feel like I'm watching like some kind of a videotape or a home movie or something. That's how I think raw the emotion is, and how great those two actors are playing off against each other. And again, I think this film has a great cast overall. But clearly the heart of this is the dynamic between those two. And as the movie goes along through its paces, especially that whole sequence with the wedding and people bearing out their soul to her, it's like the grandmother didn't seem phased.
No.
But I feel like if I were her, I'd be like, why are these... Get a grip. This is a fucking wedding. Why are you crying? This is supposed to be a happy event, and everybody's fucking crying out of nowhere. I feel like at some point, like, something's off here. You know? Like, there was a lot of red flags going off, but the emotion is absolutely there. It is... There's a sequence in the end of the movie where Awkwafina acts as if this is the last time she'll see her grandmother alive, and they're parting ways. And as the car is pulling away, we're zooming out of Nai Nai, and you see her face just break and break more. You can just tell what a close relationship these two had with each other. I almost wonder what a close friend of mine would think of this if I recommended this movie to her. She was, we were very close with each other back up there in Washington, D.C., and she recently lost her grandmother, and as she claims, she was raised by her grandmother. Her grandmother was her best friend. She was 90 years old. Unfortunately passed away late last year, and I know it's weighing heavy on her conscience because she feels like she just lost her biggest fan, her best friend. And I'm sure a lot of our grandmothers were that to us. And in some ways, it can be an uncomfortable viewing experience for those of us who have yet to experience the loss of a grandparent, because it's just kind of, it fills you with dread knowing that one day that's going to happen. And that's not fun thinking about that. I lost a grandparent a year ago, and I still haven't really come to terms with that. with that, especially in the situation in which that happened. But yeah, it can't be cathartic. It is emotional. It's also in spaces weirdly funny.
Yeah. I mean, you just gotta have to laugh sometimes in situations. And
yeah.
And yeah, no, the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of like, I find this kind of relatable. It's so weird.
Interesting.
No, like you just brought up like that scene in the end where Aquafina's leaving, and then you see the grandma kind of like break down crying. It's like that happens to me. That I saw that a lot whenever we would go to Tijuana, and we would say goodbye to my grandma. Like she kind of like feel sad about it, and even though it's like, it's just a 3-hour drive away, not what is it, 12-hour flight.
Yeah,
but yeah, she'd always be kind of sad whenever we would leave, but
yeah, I feel like secretly a lot of us are that way. I related a lot more to both of them in that moment, because I also, whenever I get to reunite with people that I really, really love to be around, and then that moment where you have to separate to go back to our regular lives, it's just so crushing, because you just wish you could spend more time together, and yet life demands that you have to be elsewhere. For a good year and a half, I flew back and forth from one side of the country to the other. 2 different lives, 2 different worlds. Like I mentioned, it's like flying from Coruscant to Mos Eisley. It literally is the perfect comparison. To my situation. And whenever I'd have to leave one location and head back to the other, I would just get so sad. And those are parts of life that, sometimes I wish I could do without, but change has got to happen, and that usually involves separation. So I thought it was a deeply moving film, and I think one that is, even though it has subtitles in it, which people need to get over that, honestly, I think it's very much accessible to a mainstream audience, maybe more so than any other A24 film in a while. Because when I think of A24, I think of, Uncut Gems and Lighthouse, and those movies are not mainstream at all. In fact, I would actively warn audiences to stay away from those movies because they would not have a good time. But I think Farewell is, it's just more universal.
Yeah, definitely.
The premise is universal, It doesn't matter what culture you're from. So, and also Happy, even though it is, this is not a film that was made in another country like Parasite and that we got it here. This is a film that was made in the U.S. And as somebody who has, documented, the Asian American experience in film, the last year, with the work I did with See Us, it's very rewarding to see that there are more and more films that are being made that predominantly feature Asian Americans or Asians. That's a net positive. in a seemingly sea of shit that we have coming on the horizon, for filming anyway. So yeah, that's the farewell. Do you have any other thoughts on this movie?
No, I think we said everything.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think we're gonna go ahead and cut it there, right?
I think that's all the movies.
All right. So, thank you all for listening to our late night derangements. Even though it's not late, but it feels late because we're old now. It is 2020. You can listen to our podcast whenever it drops. It drops every single Sunday, sometimes on Thursdays. Anywhere I meant to say you listen to podcasts. Just got a brain fart there. Whether it be Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, anywhere, Wooshka on those days. And of course, catch Bond and Beyond, as well as To the Table and other shows of the sort. And keep an eye out for our top 10 shows that will be coming shortly. But until then, thank you, David, for joining me on this podcast. Thank you all for listening so much. And remember to stay here under the spotlight. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.